Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show, where we work very hard to deliver truth to youth. That is our objective. I am joined in the Hilltop Studios by...
I'm a Surefire.
And Uncle Bachi.
And Uncle Labachi. Full house. I am absolutely not going to tell you about our social media presence. It ain't going to happen.
Wow.
All things are being funneled to a place called DocOwenShow.com. DocOwenShow. Spell it as if it were all one word, Doc Owen Show, just like you say it, .com. You got Twitter links, you got all the social media links that are pertinent or germane. You've got email connectivity to Ima and Uncle Bachi and myself, and you got the store is open. You can go buy everything from foo-foo water for your pet, right? Is the pet store out there yet?
Not yet.
Uh-oh. Mm-mm. Okay, forget the pet. You can buy fragrance candles.
Yes.
All the way from the point was all the way from candles to bulletproof vests.
That's right.
And a few things in between. Mm-hmm. So we went ahead and opened the doors, even though the store is not fully stocked. We got to, put some more links and merchandise out there. But now you can cue that little applause thing. Ms. Surefire put it together. She had a target date of April 1st, and she nailed it. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think it already stopped.
Oh, it already stopped?
Yes.
Oh, we didn't get to hear it. Do it again.
Okay.
We're playing with sound effects. Oh, okay. We'll know when we play it back to ourselves.
Right.
Or,
Yeah.
It was. You were supposed. I hope it wasn't dead air. If it was, it wasn't. It was just a few seconds long.
That's right.
But it was supposed to be canned applause for Ms. Surefire. She did a bang up job.
Not without help from other people too.
Yay, Ima.
That other one, I hope really does play. The one that I'm gonna take after we get into the show. I'm gonna play a clip for you that told me back in the 70s or so. I think it was the 70s or the late 60s to expect Adam Schiff on the horizon. It was a clip that I recorded, and I remember till this day, and now I know why I was so crazy about this one particular clip you're going to hear, because it is Adam Schiff is in this clip.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's you just never know what's going to cross your path when you're going along. They teach us that our eyes, that our brain is, our eyes are the camera, right? And our ears are the sound, and it's all stored in your brain. Everything. And you may or may not be able to recall it, or you may have some moments where you go, this looks familiar. I mean, I've been here before, and you may well have, or someplace very similar. Okay, we always start the show, and the title of tonight's show is "Cue the Boo." All right,
Cue the boo.
cue the boo. Yes,
Our number one fan let us
Uncle
know.
Ed?
Yes.
he could hear the applause.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
you,
So
Ed.
that confirms
Yeah.
you'll be able to hear because we don't always hear everything in the studio that we're putting into the
Yeah.
recording. It's a matter of
That's too high tech.
it really is. So anyway, we always start the show in a very traditional manner. I will say something about the apps. I'm not going to mention the social media because I want you to go to DocOwenShow.com. But you should also download one of the apps that we have. They're free. They give you access to the show and all the old podcasts. And they're available on the iTunes, on the Apple store as well as the Android store. So it's a delightful way to keep up with and catch up with what we've been talking about. All right, now we'll dive into our traditional start. Ms. Surefire gives us a moment of inspiration, an inspirational quote. Uncle Bocce tells us something about history, and I started out finishing it with a leadership quote and transitioned into a biblical reference to what's going on. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote comes from a site that I haven't used before, but I thought it had some pretty good quotes. It's called therightmessages.com.
Therightmessages.com.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Yep.
Okay, as in R-I-G-H-T?
Yep.
Okay, not
Nope.
W-R-I-T-E. Okay,
As in the correct message.
bingo.
And they do not reference anybody on the quote, so I guess they're the ones
Cool.
that generate it themselves.
Interesting.
Like that one I used a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tonight's quote is, maturity does not come with growth. It's most times a function of perfecting that balance between struggles and life and learning to be yourself regardless of what life throws at you.
Oh, wow.
You might have to repeat that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
Maturity does not come with growth. It's most times a function of perfecting that balance between struggles and life and learning to be yourself regardless of what life throws at you.
Interesting.
There you go.
There was a concept. Can you hang on a second, Uncle Bocce? I know you're all queued up.
No, I'm fine.
There was relative to that. There was a concept that I ran into when I was doing the research for my PhD in leadership and in ethics, and I really liked it. It's a thing called emotional maturity that you have run into in your studies as well, and so what you just said was very
Emotional intelligence.
both. Yep. Yep. Okay. Uncle Bocce,
Sounds great.
what are you waiting on, man? Let's go.
Listen to him, huh? Okay.
No more
All
coffee
righty.
for some people.
Yeah. In 1884, on this day, if you remember from our studies, President Harrison, he dies after 1 month in office.
I remember that part, but I didn't know
he was a guy who stood out in the freezing cold with no coat on, and he caught pneumonia
and died.
Bam!
Right.
There he went.
That's
So
all
much
she
for-
wrote.
So
That
much
was
for
the
being
end
a
of
hero.
him. The NATO Pact was signed
Okay.
on this day in 1949.
Yep.
And also, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated on this day in 1968. And that's today's minute, or
Okay.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Moment in time.
There you go.
That's
All right.
it.
Good job. My biblical reference is not an exact quote. It's just a paraphrase from memory. And it has to do with the rest of tonight's show and some things that are going on in the news. Okay? And I'm reminded of one of the teachings about everything in moderation. And I can you're on your own to look up the quote. If that doesn't remind you of anything, then bless you.
My mother always refers to that. Everything in moderation.
Right. It is a key.
Yeah.
And we
It's essential.
I'll remind you of why I brought that up as we go through the rest of the show, if I can keep my train of thought going. So, Uncle Bocce,
Yes, sir.
are you ready for a little longer loop into history?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. You
Okay.
got any presidents you want to talk about? Or?
Yeah, tonight we're going to talk about a very unusual person. His name is Gerald Rudolph Ford.
Oh, well,
He's the 38th president.
yeah.
And he came to be president on August 9th, 1974, under very unusual circumstances. Owing to the Watergate scandal, Richard Nixon was forced to resign rather than going through impeachment. And his vice president, who was Gerald Ford, became president.
May I tell you something about that?
You can tell
event? See, I told you we're no longer in history now.
Well, true.
You know me, and I was a young person. I was in my mid-20s, and if you've listened to the show at all, you know I've been a fanatic about politics since I was 10, 11, or 12 years old, for various reasons. But mostly because I was a proud, patriotic young person, and continued that through, most of my life. I remember quite well. I happened to be, didn't live there, but I happened to be visiting with my mother. I lived in Dallas, and I was passing through for some reason or another, and Mom was watching the television, and it was the day that President Nixon announced the appointment, because Gerald Ford's predecessor as vice president, a fellow by the name of Spiro Agnew, the governor of Maryland, former governor of Maryland, became vice president with Nixon. He had to resign due to a scandal. And so Nixon appointed Ford, who was really very well liked by both sides of the aisle. He was like the Sara Lee of politicians. Nobody didn't like Gerald Ford.
Very accomplished politician.
But the minute that happened, I said, there's your next president. And my mother corrected me. She said, no, he's the vice president. I said, just watch. Because I was paying attention down the road to what was going on with Watergate and fully expected Nixon to be gone. I was reading between the lines. That's back when I did read newspapers. But I read between the lines. So anyway, that's a rather a personal moment that if you're paying attention, you can figure things out.
Yes.
You can anticipate. You may not know the exact timing, but if you just connect all the dots and you're looking at everything that's going on around you, it's really pretty well written. So whether you like it or not. Sorry, Bocce.
That's okay. That's okay. That makes one point that I don't have to cover.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. When he came into office, the United States after World War II was expanding, was doing great, wonderful, bang-up job. But by the time Gerald Ford took office, the economy and the international prestige had gone down to the bottom.
Well, it was because of all the Watergate nastiness that was out on the air.
The Watergate, and don't forget what came before Watergate.
Right.
The Great Society and all that stuff.
Right.
So everything had deteriorated, so the debacle of the Watergate, included with the Vietnam War, it profoundly affected the American public. And their confidence in their leaders, very much so. So Gerald Ford stepped into the breach. Gerald Ford was a very congenial gentleman, honest, hardworking. He was apple pie.
Just don't ever play golf with him.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Did he play golf?
He was known for hitting the golf balls into his companions.
Oh.
He was a terrible golfer.
Oh, well, got to be bad at something, I guess. And he owns the title of the very first vice president and president never elected.
Never elected.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So he was trying to restore Americans' faith, and he had mixed, in the government, he had mixed results from that. His Midwestern values, like I said before, honesty, hard work, and genuineness, helped.
Oh, yeah.
To heal the nation a little bit.
He was the right guy at the time.
Yeah. But then, the thing that probably stabbed him in the back the most, he pardoned former President Nixon.
Right.
And that really was a bad thing for him because the conservatives didn't like him anymore. And a lot of people just were very much against him because he did that. And that probably was the reason why he never got a second chance.
Right.
You know,
Right.
to win his own election.
Right.
He went through high school.
As we learn in ethics, doing the right thing is often not very popular.
That's true. That's true. That's good. Thank you. So he attended high school. He was an Eagle Scout. He was a member of the Honor Society, scholarship to University of Michigan, and then he got his law degree from Yale University.
Right.
So the guy went through it all. And
Yeah.
He became a lawyer, and he tried to practice as a lawyer for a little bit. But then he turned to politics. In Congress, Gerald Ford was reelected 12 times by his home district.
Yeah.
12 times he
Yeah.
was reelected. Some guys that are in there are elected much more than that. So, and every time he won more than 60% of the vote.
Right.
Okay. He was in the Congress while the Warren Commission was going, and he did become the House Minority Leader.
Tell the young folks what the Warren Commission was.
The Warren Commission was a commission led by Chief Justice Earl Warren
Right.
that was that had the responsibility to look into Watergate and determine what actually did happen.
So the analogy would be the Mueller report.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Exactly. Except that he wasn't a special prosecutor.
Right. Well, no,
He was
Chief Justice
he was
of the Supreme Court.
Chief Justice.
Duh.
Okay. So the Republicans, Gerald Ford, he won the nomination by a narrow margin against Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
Ronald Reagan was
two in a row he
all
lost.
fed up with what was going on. So he tried, but he didn't get it. And the Democrats, James Earl Carter Jr., he was a
Jimbo.
one-term governor of Georgia. So, he ended up losing to Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
He just flat out lost, because he just didn't have enough support. Okay?
Well, Carter, the people merchandising Carter did an excellent job.
They did. They did.
Considering what the country was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar, Jimmy Carter was best known for running his campaign in blue jeans and a blue jean shirt.
Yep.
I mean, he was
was
played himself
a
as
peanut
a
farmer.
peanut
That's
farmer,
right.
which he was in fact.
He was,
but he
yeah.
didn't dress up like a politician. That was the last
No.
thing he wanted to look like was a
No,
politician.
and he carried his own bag over his shoulder from the plane when he deplaned.
Yeah, you know the joke on that, right?
No, I don't know the joke on it, but I know he
Was
did
it
it.
filled with peanuts?
No, it was empty.
Oh yeah,
He always carried his bag. He always carried a briefcase on and off of Air Force One, and all the Secret Service gave him because it was empty. There was nothing in it. He just wanted to look like he was the
Yeah.
working guy.
sure, just like Bill Clinton with his Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't burn his hands.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Carter was
Where those hands have been.
Mr. Carter was the gentleman that proved my theory correct.
That
I went to the Naval Academy because I wanted to go into politics. I wanted to be the senator from Texas.
there you go.
And Mr. Carter is a Naval Academy graduate.
Oh, I did. Oh, okay.
And it
Yeah,
worked
yeah, yeah.
very well
Yeah.
for him when he was running for
Yeah.
office.
My first thought of Jimmy Carter when I first saw him was one of kind of like joy because I was enamored with John F. Kennedy.
Right.
And I thought, Jimmy Carter, he's the rebirth of John F. Kennedy. Of course, he wasn't anywhere near that, but that was my first impression of
That's
the man.
exactly the impression
because
they
of his
wanted.
big smile, his
that's
big teeth.
That's the impression they wanted you to have.
Yeah, exactly.
He was
Exactly.
merchandised perfectly.
Okay. So domestically, of course, he pardoned Nixon. He had some campaign reform law passed in 1974. Now remember, the economy, it was sputtering with both inflation and unemployment on the rise. They came up with a word and they called it stagflation.
Right.
Okay, because everything was stagnant and there was huge inflation.
Right.
The economic decline traced to the end of American predominance in international economy and the rise of low-paying service sector in the. You remember? I remember that in the American economy. The economy was changing.
Yeah.
You know, it was going away from hardcore manufacturing
Right.
to service. So that happened.
Right.
You know, during this time. The consumption of oil grew rapidly in the 60s and 70s. The need was met by importing oil from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because back then we didn't have all this oil that we have now. To give you an example, unemployment grew from 5 point.
Let's be real clear. We absolutely had the oil. It was cheaper to buy it than it was to produce it.
Okay. Yeah.
It was less expensive for the oil companies to buy it elsewhere. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So unemployment went from 5.4%, which was already high,
Yeah.
up to 6.5% in August of that first year.
I thought it hit double digits somewhere in there.
It probably did. And by the end of 1974, the country was in a full-fledged recession.
Yeah.
And economic production fell.
Gasoline was actually rationed.
Yes, it was. I remember those lines.
I remember as a child.
I was a traveling
Okay.
salesman. I didn't have to go through that.
A couple
I
other
was a
big.
child.
Job.
Oh yeah, yeah. A couple other big
Push
issues
faster, mommy.
that were going on at the time. Was the divisive issue of busing. You know, segregation had not been, the back of segregation had not been broken yet. So, give you a couple examples. In Boston, a judge ordered the school system to integrate.
Yeah.
Well, riots broke out. They
Yeah.
didn't want it. In New York City was I'm sorry, go ahead, say something.
Where did the riots break out?
In Boston.
No.
Well, I mean,
The white, the
yeah.
as we call them today, the white privileged people
Yes.
rioted?
Right.
Or did the blacks want the integration? They can't hear you.
No, I mean, I'm here shaking my head.
Can you hear it, folks?
We're not
What?
on TV. dude.
They can't hear that? My head rattles.
I know that, but it's not quite all close
Your
enough.
headphones shaking.
Okay.
So that was the point I wanted to bring out.
Yeah.
Actually, the way they were going about it, neither side wanted to integrate. Neither
yeah.
the blacks nor the whites.
Right.
And it's not. It's the way they went about it that put us at odds rather than
It
together.
did. It really did.
So go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
So then,
And that still exists today.
yeah, it does. It does. New York City was bankrupt. And Ford did not believe that that the federal government should be involved in schooling and education and all that stuff.
Ford was right.
So he was. So he refused to
Right.
bail out New York City.
Right.
Okay, but eventually he turned that around, which was another bad thing for him. He got on board with the bailout because of one person, and I don't really know much about him, but his name was Senator James Buckley of New York.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Buckley was very, very powerful.
yeah. So, and then the foreign, of course, the Vietnam War. He did get a established ceasefire in North Vietnam, but after that, after we finally got everybody out of there, the North attacked the South, and so Vietnam was out of our hands now.
Yep.
He continued détente with the Soviet Union, which was meant to lessen tensions between the two countries.
Yeah. For those of you not familiar with the French term, it's ceasefire.
Yeah. Okay. Helsinki Accords were signed, and what that did was after the war, it solidified the boundaries of all the European countries.
And they all sunk into hell.
They all, yeah.
Helsinki.
They did, well, half of them did. Yeah. And then in November 1974, the Vladivostok Accords. That provided in general an outline for a successor to the SALT Treaty, which was the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. So they were going to go into that.
Yeah.
As far as historical significance, there were three elements. First, Ford faced extraordinary challenges, especially involving a nation's economic woes, which he struggled to solve. Second, Ford had difficulty navigating and demanding political environment with the Democrats. So he was having trouble there, and the conservative Republicans as well. And the combination of those first two elements helped bring Ford defeat.
Okay.
And then, just the quote that everybody will remember, probably.
That's what he was known for.
A government big enough to give you everything you want is a government big enough to take from you everything you have.
Right.
That's a good one.
That's a
That
Ford.
is. That's
Okay.
a Fordism.
Okay.
Okay, and I am Uncle Bachi, UNCLEBACI, at DocOwenShow.com. Go out to the website, sign up, and we'll put you on our mailing list because we got a lot of exciting things happening.
Go down to the
Thank
bottom
you,
of the
Uncle
page.
Bachi.
Good job, Bachi.
Thank you.
Go down to the bottom of the page and put your little mouse pointer thing over Uncle Bachi's picture, and it'll turn around on you.
Yeah,
It'll
under
flip.
About Us.
Yep.
About Us, you can tweet with us.
Yep.
And under Contact Us, you can send us direct messages.
There you go.
Hey, we're growing, folks.
Yep. It's happening.
Moving.
That's scary. Okay. Good job.
Thank you.
I know I interrupted you a lot, but you're just not talking about history anymore.
I understand.
So let's cue up the next little clip you're going to listen to. It's about 12 to 13 minutes long, and it's from the 60s to the 70s, and it's a cartoon character that was always a favorite of mine. It's down in the
mine
sound
too.
bites.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's a cartoon character, friend of mine, not a friend, but, one of my favorites.
He could have been a friend.
And if it doesn't remind you, it's what I think every time I see or hear Adam Schiff speak. Okay?
Aha.
Play
That's
it.
where Adam Schiff comes in.
No, the other one where we normally can't hear. Okay.
We're live.
Right now.
Uh-huh.
And there's no
You
way.
can't do it both.
What a day for tramping through the woods. Doo-dah, doo-dah. I'm a chicken. Rooster that is.
Talk to me, Dad. You're not a
Do it.
What am I then, boy?
you're a loudmouth.
Look here, son. I'm no loudmouth snook. This is a dog, not a chicken. Chickens don't look like dogs. Who told you this was a chicken, son? Nice boy, but never listen to a word you say. Now what's that? I say now, what's that boy up to? Better check on it, yeah. Hey, boy, what's going on here? What you trying to do? Oh, no, back off there, son. You'll never do it. You're not strong enough. Job like this, you gotta have a know-how. There you are, boy. Your pumpkin is turned down for enough. These kids nowadays don't even know how to tie down their pumpkins. Why, when I was a boy, I never tied down no pumpkins. Hey, son, what's the Ask a silly question, get a silly answer.
Love that dog.
Now, who's responsible for this unwarranted attack on my person? Aha! Of course, you know this means war. Hey, boy, what's the idea of jacking that pot up under me?
Jack? Pot?
Jackpot. Yeah, that's a joke, son. Don't you get it? I made a funny, son, and you're not laughing. I say that boy's just like a tattoo. Gets under your skin. All right, sister, out with it. Let's have it. Now, what's the big idea bashing me on the noggin with a rolling pin? Clunk enough people and we'll have a nation of lumpheads. Now, hold on. That was a joke, girl. Lumpheads. Nothing to cry about. Now, let's hear your side of the story, sister. I know just what you're gonna say. You're looking for a husband. Well, you're going about it all wrong, girlie. You don't bat him on the bean with a rolling pin. That comes later. Hey, boy, come on over here. Let's have a look at you. This is a boy? I know what a real boy likes to play. Here. Hey, boy, take that ball out of your mouth. Haven't you ever seen a baseball before? Haven't you ever played baseball? There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball. Okay, boy, I'll learn you the game. Now, we got the ball, and this is the bat. You know what the bat's for? No, boy, you're supposed to hit the ball with it. The ball! It's sure quiet around here. You could hear a caterpillar sneaking across a moss bed with tennis shoes. Let's bury the hat, I say. Let's bury the hat, but not in anyone's head, boy. Hatch at head. That's a joke, boy. You missed it. Went right past you. You gotta keep on your toes. Toes, that is. The fast ones get right by you. Keep your ears open. Yappity, yappity, yap. I can't get a word in edgeways. Talk. But no wonder you're not sharp. You gotta shut up. I'm a lucky fisherman, doo-dah. What happened to you, dog? You look like 2 miles of bad road. What you doing there, dog? Now cut that out, boy, or I'll spank you where the feathers are thinnest. Nice boy, but he's got more nerve than a bum tooth. Now, what's that kid doing in the barn? Don't touch it, boy! Get away! This is dangerous, son. You gotta know how to handle it. One wrong move and you're done for. Pay attention, son. This is for your own good. That dog is lower than a snake full of buckshot. Well, I'll just have to pay a visit to that blubber-headed hound and gently break him in two with my good right arm. Don't look so good. Muscles getting kind of flabby. Whoa, mule! Whoa, mule! Whoa, I say whoa! Oh, come on, mule! Whoa! So what you do is take this fine cassava melon over to him, show him what you got, but don't let him have it. You gotta tease him a little, make him chase you. Look, sister, is any of this filtering through that little blue bonnet of yours? Nice girl, but about as sharp as a sack of wet mice. Oh, you got a fine boy here, man.
Ooh, I oughta. Ooh, he's a little dog. Eugh. Look at me when I'm talking, son. Now you stand right here. You're not looking at me, boy. I'll tell you when to move.
Okay.
Three, two, one. Oh, oh. Do-da, do-da. Oh, do-da day. Go, I say go away, boy. You bother me. Pay attention, son. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Now, where'd that boy go? You gotta be a magician to keep a kid's attention more than 2 minutes nowadays. If I'm a rooster, I say if I'm a rooster, I hope to be struck by... Well, let's put it another way. Wait a minute. Pay attention when I'm talking to you, boy. I say I'm gonna take you out to the woods and learn you about scouting and woodcraft. Real Davy Crockett stuff. You'd like that, wouldn't you, boy? No. Shaking your head means no. And I know you don't mean no, do you, boy? This boy's more mixed up than a feathery whirlwind. Get a load of this. So I'm not a smart hunter.
All of these sounds are the same guy.
Oh, wow.
Any of this getting through that little old blue bonnet of yours? Well, woman, blink your eyes or something. Gee, that's it, boy. Tug hard. Harder. 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 Well, I say back to the old drawing board. Somebody
Okay.
knocked. Fortunately, I keep my feathers numbered for just such an emergency.
Okay. So what you need to do is to go to your YouTube channel and Google Foghorn Leghorn. And you'll be able to see some of the visuals in the cartoon that went with those sound effects and those lessons learned. So every time the objective is every time you see Adam Schiff on the television or spouting his face off, you need to think of Foghorn Leghorn. I mean, Foghorn's my favorite phrase of his, and I've got a grape jelly glass that has a Foghorn Leghorn on it that I used to drink orange juice out of every morning. And so I would start my day with, I say, it's a joke, son. How come you ain't laughing? And that's exactly what I think of when I see Adam Schiff. I mean, the reason the name of the show was Cue the Boo is because every time, and that's an allness statement, and I'm trying to train me not to use those, but there's sometimes where there's just no other way. That Trump tweets or has a press conference or one of his people does or whatever, you would think the entire rest of the world just goes bonkers with one big loud boo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you could just almost see them doing it with each other to kind of warm up, and then they put themselves in front of a microphone or a television or a blog or whatever they can, and they all just holler in unison before they've even heard what it's about, or it is absolutely amazing. And so, I mean, I'm at the point with all of this literally circus that's going on, instead of trying to explain it to the audience logically, and frustrating myself with the impossibility of being able to do that. I thought I would just point them in the right direction, and that is help you understand that you're watching a comedy show. I mean, they're taking it very seriously, but to the audience, particularly, as Ms. Surefire brought up, the emotionally mature audience, it's a freaking comedy show. And it's bearing, not only is it not bearing any positive fruit, it's actually, all of you in the audience are old enough to have learned in mathematics, and whether you remember the principle or not, you probably do, but you don't recall it instantly. But I've always used it in social situations, more so than mathematically. Okay? Mm-hmm. When you have a group of people around and somebody is a real dork, just adds no value whatsoever and actually takes away from the conversation. Right?
Right.
We've all been in those situations. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly where the Democrats are. So what we have to do is remember the mathematical rule. Minus a minus is what?
A plus.
Bingo. They are so minus that if we were minus them, we'd be ahead. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're going to paint themselves right out of the picture. And I happen to be with what I think Trump's strategy is, and that's giving them enough rope to hang themselves. Euphorically speaking, folks.
Please.
Can't say anything anymore. So, does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Now, does all the cartoon flurry we went through make sense?
It sure does.
Will it help you visualize what you see on television?
Unfortunately.
Well, it's supposed to be fortunately.
No, it is. It is.
I mean, it
is.
The Foghorn Leghorn was probably second in popularity only to
Woody Woodpecker?
No.
Mickey Mouse?
Different generation, different type cartoons. UTSA.
Roadrunner. Oh, the Roadrunner. Yeah.
Beep, beep.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
They were the
Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
But that one, literally, it's visual. It's all visual.
Yeah.
There's no conversation. That fella that you hear doing the Foghorn Leghorn, I think, if memory serves me correctly, was actually from Fort Worth, Texas. And he did the vast majority of the voices that you heard, whether it was the dog or the little boy, the little chicken, or the Foghorn Leghorn himself or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I've just always found it fascinating. So what else do we need to cover? What in generalities, I mean, are there any specifics? We could talk about the border. The price of avocados has almost tripled. And for those of you listening outside of our home state of Texas, if they close down the border or dampen the trade, which they've already done, it now takes a truck sits in line for over 12 hours just to get through the gate, an 18-wheeler full of stuff. The cost to the United States is estimated at $1 billion per day for the closing. So it's a tough decision to make.
Cheaper to build a wall.
It's a tough decision to make. But the other thing, so we got into a conversation the other. I mean, Texans like their guacamole. We like our guacamole, which is an avocado dish, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So for those of you outside of Texas, if the border does get closed or even dampened down anymore, you need to understand that you are not going to get any avocados whatsoever, because we're going to use them all.
We have direct connection
yes,
to Mexico.
we have.
We used to grow them in California ourselves
well,
until the government shut the water off.
Well, and it's my understanding
Yeah.
the California crop, they had a heat wave in California, so the avocado crop is coming in, but it's late. Seriously.
Oh, so they are still growing them in
They're
California.
still growing them.
Okay.
But it was put off. It was stunted this year getting started because of a heat wave last summer or whatever. I don't know exactly what the growing season for avocados is. The challenge with avocados is they don't last long. They don't preserve well.
Yeah.
I mean-
well, that one particular kind, but the ones you get from Florida, you know, those big shiny ones.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever had one of those. It
No.
tastes the same, but they're bigger.
Yeah.
And they're grown in Florida.
Yeah.
So
The only way that you can store an avocado is to deep fry it. And then-
I've never done that.
Yeah, it's kind of like chicken fried steak. You just soak it and dip it and then fry it like it.
Sounds good.
You can put it in the refrigerator for about a couple of weeks.
I gotta try it.
Try one of the Florida ones.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if I were reading the tea leaves, like I used to be able to do, my suggestion would be that the border is going to be closed for some period of time.
I
Don't know how, it's
I
kind of
hope
like
you're right.
the government shutdown. It's kind of like the government shutdown.
Yeah.
This is not a guy, this Mr. Trump fellow that's president of the United States of America that 49% of the country refuses to acknowledge.
yeah, right. I agree.
He's not a guy you bluff.
I agree with you. But however, I've seen signs of him backing off of that now. Now he's saying he's going to give Mexico a year to stop all of this immigration and the drug trafficking and the human trafficking.
Yeah, he's going
to give him a year.
He's going to give him
and
a
then
year.
he's going to close the border.
No, that's not it.
No, okay.
Where'd you see that? 'Cause I saw
heard it
just
on the radio.
Well.
Yeah.
There's got to be truth.
No.
Oh, you listen to NPR?
Oh, definitely not.
Oh, okay.
No.
What I saw on the alternate channels was that he basically given them 24 to 48 hours to make a move and get started at stopping them at the southern
Good.
end
I'm
of the border.
encouraged. I'm encouraged to hear that.
And more time than that to make it a total part of their operations.
Yeah.
But he needs to see some signs within 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, I heard.
Or he's closing it down.
I heard a line that somebody in Arizona came up with, and he said, "Yes, I love my avocados, but I prefer safety before an avocado."
Right.
Relating to stopping the darn
Human
immigration.
trafficking.
So.
Yeah.
What
I
you got?
have a feeling that he is going to close it because there's been a lot of military activity here in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the border, I mean, immigration was stopped in the 1920s and didn't come back until Ed Kennedy put it back in 1965.
Right.
I mean, that's how long we were not, because we wanted the people to assimilate.
Right.
And right now we're in the same situation.
Well, we still want them to assimilate, but during that time frame you're talking about, we enforced assimilation. In other words, they had to be able to speak English. In other words, they had to have certain identification to get a job. We enforced assimilation. We don't do that any longer.
Right.
And that was the other thing that my biblical quote was about. Okay. I've been seeing a lot of stuff lately about diversity and the expansion of diversity, and as this HR movement to have diversified companies and yada yada yada. Congress is a very good example right now. The House of Representatives. We will diversify ourselves right out of being a republic.
That's right.
And at all things in moderation. There are times when it is perfectly acceptable in the life of Americans to say, no, we are not going to do that. Mm-hmm. That is not who we are. I appreciate your interest, but we are not going to do that. and I'm right now. I'm speaking specifically about Congress because you see what diversity gets you. It's the old camel's nose under the tent. Ilhan Omar, our most outspoken anti-Semitic Muslim congressperson from where? Michigan or Minnesota?
She's Michigan.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
Is now petitioning President Trump to pardon to work with the president of Egypt to pardon a convicted high-level terrorist member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Somebody needs to have the cojones to get her out of there.
That's right. They do.
Find a way. Put Adam Schiff on the case.
If not, they'll be practicing Sharia law there before you know it.
Yeah, just to appease. Enough. Enough is enough. We must. It's perfectly okay for us to say no. That's not who we are, and that's not who we want to be. And if I'm wrong, my apologies.
Yeah, and Congress is not doing
But I don't
enough.
think so. If you want to save your republic, you need to learn where to draw the line. And it's not a matter of being ugly or prejudiced or Islamophobic or racist or any of the other names that somebody wants to call you. It's a matter of being a stand-up American. Proud of it and expecting everyone else in this country to act the same. And if you don't, hasta la vista.
Yeah. I'm sure for a lot of Americans out there who listen to mainstream media and who listen to the Democrats, I'm sure that they have a hard time understanding what it means to be an American.
They refuse. If they can't accept facts as facts,
exactly.
then they absolutely can't. They don't like Americans.
That's what I'm saying. They don't.
They don't like Americans. They don't like what America stands for. So please, somebody help me understand why I should put up with that crap.
That's right. The whole premise is wrong.
I'm not moving because my neighbor's unhappy. I'm going to dig in my heels until my neighbor moves.
That's right.
End of discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, well, that's a good way of putting
It's either you're American or you're OTA.
And by the way,
other than American.
speaking of neighbors, we got an old phrase here in Texas that I keep trying to bring up, and it's nobody's fault of my own because I forget to do it, but we just led into it. You know what we say here, and you know what we've always said here? Good fences make good neighbors.
Here you go.
And it's a true statement. Both on the homestead, it actually came up between the cattle and the sheep men when they were fighting over what kind of country this was going to be. Was it going to be cattle country or was it going to be sheep country?
Yeah.
So they came up with the phrase, good fences make good neighbors. You do whatever you want to do on your part, and I'll do what I want on my part.
There you go.
And good fences do make good neighbors. That's the reason we need one at the southern border. And then if they swing around and start coming in from the north, we'll build that one too.
And the waters, too.
Yeah, the waters is a little difficult.
You have a floating fence.
Yeah, if you want to become an isolationist, then you got to do the waters.
You might have to.
They got to have some way to get the avocados in. I hope it made sense. I hope we connected some dots for you. Just think of Foghorn Leghorn the next time you see the front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.